So today we're going to look at a neat little acronym that's going to help us understand nonfiction text better using this word thieves. So at the end, hopefully you'll be able to answer the question, how can we get meaning from nonfiction text? The letters in the word thieves are going to help remind us how to take meaning from nonfiction texts like science or social studies. So the T stands for title. The first thing you want to do before reading a passage is to look at the title. After looking at that title, you're going to ask yourself the following questions. What do I already know about this particular topic? What does this topic have to do with the preceding passage? So if you read something that came before this particular passage, does this title seem like it goes in line with that? Maybe it gives more discussion on the topic, maybe it gives a different viewpoint, or maybe it's completely different. Does the title express a point of view? So are we getting any kind of argument or idea from the author of how they feel based on what the title says? And what do I think I will be reading about? Now, you can answer these questions in your head and maybe just jot some ideas off to the side to get you going, so you have those to look back to and kind of remind yourself of what you're doing or what you're reading as you continue. Next, the letter H stands for headings. These are the subheadings that come throughout a nonfiction passage. You'll see them a lot. They're typically in bold. The font size is smaller than the title, but larger than the regular font size that comes throughout the passage. So before you start to read any of the passage, you want to go through and read all of the headings. After looking at the headings, ask yourself, what does this particular heading tell me I will be reading about? What is the topic of the paragraph beneath it? And how can I turn this heading into a question that is likely to be answered in the text? So again, these are some things you answer in your head, jot some ideas off to the side next to each heading. Next, the letter I stands for introduction. Remember, this is going to be one of the first, if not the first paragraphs in the selection. So after reading the introduction, is there an opening paragraph, perhaps italicized or bolded? Does it look slightly different from the rest of the passage? Does the first paragraph introduce the chapter or the rest of the passage or the topic? What does the introduction tell me I will be reading about? So does it give me a hint as to what everything else is going to be discussing? And do I know anything about this topic already? And again, some ideas you jot off to the side. The first E is every first sentence in a paragraph. You want to make sure after you read that first sentence in a paragraph, what do I think this passage is going to be about based on the first sentence in each paragraph? Remember that a lot of times the first sentence of a paragraph is going to be your topic sentence. So it's just going to outright state what the central idea of that paragraph is. So based off of all of the topic sentences in the passage, can you get a good general idea of what the passage is about? V is for visuals and vocabulary. Visuals like pictures and diagrams and maps and charts and things like that. So if the passage gives you visuals, look at those visuals. What can you learn from the captions of those visuals, the writing that they have underneath it? Or what can you learn from the photos themselves, any drawings they might have, the maps they might use, the charts or the graphs? Is there a list of vocabulary terms? Are there any words highlighted in the text? Sometimes passages will point out important words they think you need to know, or you may have a list of words as footnotes at the bottom that define themselves because they may be a little more difficult for you and you may not have common knowledge of them. So go back and looking at that. What are these words? Why are they important enough to be highlighted or bolded or listed off? Can you tell what the meanings of those words are using the context clues from the passage itself? Does the paragraph around them make them clear as to what they mean without having to look at any definitions? The second E is end of passage questions. A lot of times when you are reading chapters in social studies or science, or you are taking an end of year test, you're going to have questions at the end of the passage. Look at those questions. Ask yourself, what are they asking? What information are they kind of earmarking or pointing out that's important? What information can you as the reader learn from the questions themselves? And then you also need to remember that after looking at those questions, you need to keep them in mind so you can identify where the answers fall in the text and you can mark it, come back to it later. Finally, S stands for summary. If there is a summary about the passage, sometimes at the end of a chapter it may have a couple of sentences going over again what that chapter was about. You might not always have this, you may not have it on a test, but if there is a summary, look at that summary. What do you remember about the topics covered in the summary? So as it goes over this stuff, do you remember that stuff from the text? Can you get more specific with it? So, again, you want to remember the word thieves, title, headings, introduction, every first sentence, visuals and vocabulary, end of passage questions, and summary.